What does it take to get into MIT?
It was shocking. Everybody seems to have great idea to contribute, and you were like, why am I sitting here? You need to get out of that thought that you can't speak English well.
I want to work in a global company or maybe work abroad. What are they looking for when recruiting someone?
No one wants to just keep telling you what to do. In the top global companies, they only create you a great environment. The rest is you. The self-initiative and the passion with the work is what make the big difference between typical talent and the top talent.
Before we begin, I hope you dear viewers and listeners forgive us for any grammatical and language mistakes made in this talk. Even though we want to try our best to perfect it, what's most important for us is to get the message across. So we try not to be held back by the fear of making some mistakes. Thank you for your understanding. Now, let's jump right in. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the legendary พี่ตาค่ะ เห็นไหม sound effect เราดังมาก Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, it's such a dream come true today. So thank you so much for being
Thanks for
here.
having me.
You're doing many things and wearing many hats. So how would you introduce yourself to someone whom you just met?
All right. I would just say I'm an educator. I think that's the right word because I mainly wear two hats right now. So one hat is a founder and managing director of Studio, and we are a company that help companies and individuals upskill, reskill, and build the workforce of the future. So in a way, I'm an educator, go around, visit all the companies, teach their employees and all. And another hat that I'm wearing is that I'm a guest lecturer at Chulalongkorn University, teaching everything about data.
ฝรั่งอังมอ is still an English learning platform after all, so we need this question. How would you describe yourself in 3 English words?
All right, first word, a nerd. That should be clear. I'm a real nerd. I'm a learner. I keep learning new things. I always geek out, learning about new technologies and all. So that's the first word. The second one would be a change maker. I'm very passionate about changing the world, making things better. And that's why I'm working in the education area. And the third word would be an activator. I enjoy motivating people and especially my team to get awesome works out for our customers and make some impact to the world.
Something that I've been wanting to ask you for a long time, and I'm sure the audience out there who have known you for quite some time would want to ask this question. บิวโมเมนตัมก่อน ให้ดูมีความน่าตื่นเต้นนะคะ So you graduated with gold medal first class honor. You got into MIT. You worked at Facebook. So my first impression of you when I first got to hear about you was that พี่ต้า is definitely a genius. คือแบบสมองพี่ต้าต้องไม่เหมือนสมองของเราแน่ๆเลย
Perhaps.
Okay. So I don't know how to even frame the question, but I guess what went on during your studies? Like what were behind the academic achievement? Were you studying super hard? Were you stay up all night? Or you drink some sort of like superpower, like energy drinks or something?
Some energy drinks. Okay, but long story short, I would say I was not one of the brightest students since I was very young. And I still remember vividly that I failed this class. They call it กพอ in Thai. How should I translate
การงาน
that into
พื้นฐานอาชีพ something like that. Yeah.
So they taught you how to grow plants, how to fix things at home and things like that. And growing up in my family, I didn't get to do any of those, and I just failed miserably. And I hate all these classes, and I didn't do well in class until at some point I got this private tutoring at home, and somehow the teacher kind of motivate me to just study just a little bit more, not a lot more, just like do some extra exercise in those books that they bought me, and it turns out that what we learn in class is not that difficult. It's all in the book. So if you just spend some time reading it, going through some exercises, it's pretty easy for you to like memorize almost everything, and my performance is getting better and better. And once you start having small wins, that's when it motivates you even more. It's like, oh, okay, I just study a little bit harder, and now I'm become the first, and I can study a bit harder, and okay, now I'm representing my school, going to compete in math competition or something, and I just keep pushing and pushing. I would also say I always move myself to a more challenging environment. So at first, in my primary school, secondary school, I went to Assumption Samrong. They call it Assumption Samut Prakan now. So it was in Samut Prakan. So the competition wasn't so fierce. It was like outside of Bangkok. All the smartest ones are in the Bangkok. So I was among the top in the province, I could say that. And then I moved to Trimudom Saksa. And that's when things started to change. I was like, okay, there are many more smart people from Trimudom than it's Jula. Then now, a lot more students, more smarter people joining me. And then I moved to MIT, and that's from Thai school. You were like the top from Thai school. And once you move there, you're like, you're nothing. And I think this is one of the biggest theme in my life, keep moving myself to more challenging places, and it keeps pushing me harder and harder. And I think it's fun when you look back and was like, yeah, I managed to break my limit, and now I'm at another level, and I just keep pushing it. I would say no one's born genius and knowing everything, but if you can look at everything as challenges and take up the challenge a little bit at a time, celebrate small wins, and use that wins to keep motivating you to push yourself further and further.
Now we have reached the point that you mentioned. You went to MIT, so let's talk a little bit about that.
Sure.
Yeah. So I actually searched on Google. I did some research, and by research I mean searching on Google. So I did search on Google what people want to know the most about MIT, and guess what? So apparently most searched phrases was how to get into MIT. You already know it. Yeah. So I guess it's a no-brainer question. So what does it take to get into MIT, or maybe were there any sort of common characteristics of students who get into MIT?
Nerds. We have a slogan at MIT, Nerd Pride.
Oh.
We are proud of being nerds. So everyone there is pretty much a nerd. We always want to get deeper into certain subject. So I think that's one common characteristic. So if all the top schools in the US have their own characters. If you mention Stanford, people would think of entrepreneurs. If you mention Harvard, people would think of, well, some kind of established business person. So for MIT, it's definitely nerds. Engineers. So that's the common characteristics. But to answer your question, how to get into MIT, first of all, I would say it wasn't easy, but I think the most important thing, if the audience have studied a little bit about how to apply to international university, they don't have like specific exams for you to do, but you have to write this statement of purpose, and you need strong recommendation letters. So I think what I did well is to have good statement of purpose, what I want to do, and how studying at MIT would help me contribute whatever I want to the world. So I think that was one thing that I did well. And the second thing would be I got endorsement from all my professors who wrote recommendation letters for me. So I have this very good relationship with all my teachers. I always ask them if I can help them with anything and do side projects with them and stuff. And I think it's really important because when these professors have to write you a recommendation letters, they need some kind of personal stories of you to write down and to make the recommendation become much stronger. Otherwise, all they could do for you is that they just write down, you are one of the smart guy in my class. And that doesn't help much because everyone who applying to MIT will get that kind of mention in their recommendation letters. So I have a lot of stories that my professors kindly wrote for me. For example, one of the professor that I asked him to write a recommendation letter for me, he was like, I've never worked with you directly. We just met in class and all. So why don't you help me with this side project? And it was education, of course. It was setting up a website for open courseware for Chulalongkorn University back then. So I set up the website, did everything for him, and and he was like, yeah, so I can endorse you based on, yeah, I interact with this person and he did well, he's responsible and all. So that's what happened.
Very nice. Can we get a deep dive into your SOP statement of purpose a little bit? I think it will be quite a tips and tricks for people wanting to go study abroad. What goes into maybe just like a brief summary?
It's a little tricky when it comes to SOP. Among the best SOPs, all of them have some memorable stories. You need to write some kind of stories, what happened to you when you were young, or what were the changing point in your life, some defining moments. I think that's what make them remember you and find your SOP kind of stand out, I would say. But for me, it wasn't that dramatic. I just learned this trick later on when I have to help all my students this day writing recommendation letter. But for me, pretty much, I went to study this field called operations research, and it's all about using mathematics to solve business problem, optimizing transportation systems, any other problems in the business can be solved with math. So at that point, I mentioned one of the biggest problem in Thailand, which was a traffic jam. It was pretty bad and it's still pretty bad these days. And as I mentioned that I wanted to study transportation and I hope this would be a good knowledge and I can bring this back and make this country a little better. And I also told all this story, my personal story about how I keep pushing myself. I want to be better. I want to do something and change the world. So it's back to your earlier questions. I was a nerd. I am a change maker, and yeah, I'm an activator. I just hope that I can come and inspire people and do some good things. So I think that's what went into my SOP.
Your first month at MIT, yeah, were there any struggles that you faced, and what were maybe the biggest struggles?
Well, struggles all over the place.
So many of them.
So many of them. Academic-wise, it was shocking. Shocking would be the right word.
Even for you.
Because I did switch field of study. In my undergrad, it was computer engineering, and then the first program that I actually joined transportation program, which is under civil engineering. And the first class that I need to take, it was a policy class, like how to plan the transportation for a city and things like that. And I was shocked. I wasn't prepared for this. I've never learned any policy class at all in my life. And okay, that was one big shock. And then in the class, when you are among those smartest people and with the Western culture, people can express themselves really well. So people keep raising their hands, answering questions, and everybody seems to have great idea to contribute. And you were like, why am I sitting here?
What am I doing here?
Why am I doing here? So it was really, really bad. But since we are on Farang Angmo page, I think the biggest change was language. I'm pretty sure I was fluent in Thai. I was in a debate team when I was an engineering student. So I'm pretty confident with my speaking skill in Thai. But once you switch that into English, no, I couldn't do quite well. I thought I did well. I did pretty good score on TOEFL. But once you, I don't know, in the context of a classroom, there are a lot of advanced vocabularies that comes with the lesson. And a lot of times when you study formal English, you only learn formal words or sentences. But when you start living with native speakers, they start speaking things that you aren't familiar with, and there are a lot of adjustment that went into that. And I remember the first assignment in this particular policy class was asking me to discuss whether this city should deploy a light rail service or something. And I was like, I have no idea. I study up a lot until I got some materials. I tried to write it down. And good thing is that in most colleges in the US, they have this English center because they have a lot of what they call
international students.
So I went to this English center, asking them to help me correct my essay, and it was a nightmare. It was like all red. It's like you need to change this, you need to move this here and there, And I don't know, fast forward to this day, like I wish there was Grammarly back then.
Oh, we live easy life now.
Exactly.
Oh.
So there was no Grammarly back then. So I need to like carry my essay.
Not sponsored, by the
Not
way.
sponsored, by the way. One prime example, I would say, it was from my probability class. As an Asian, everybody came to me for math help. And I was trying to explain one of the problem to my American friend.
Okay.
And the question was asking you to calculate the probability of an event that coin tosses will sum up to an even number.
Okay.
And I was saying like this event is like even, and I keep saying for like a while, and my American friend still looked pretty confused until there was a moment he was like, "Oh, you meant event."
Okay.
And then I realized, okay, my even number and event, they were completely different for them. But for me
see.
back then, I pronounced it pretty much the same. And that was the biggest mistake that reminded me of the importance of learning proper pronunciation.
I see. Because I think when we were young, I think a lot of us didn't really learn. Just now, it's really good example of syllable stress.
Right.
เน้นการเน้นเสียงพยางค์ใช่ไหมคะ
ใช่ครับ
Event and event. A lot of people, especially in Thailand, have mastered their areas of expertise. For example, they are really good at math, they're really good at coding, design, but they still struggle with, the ability to communicate in English or any other second language to fully express themselves or to stand out in the global market, right? So is there any advice on how to overcome this barrier or this linguistic insecurity?
All right. First of all, even up to this day, I always mention to people, like at the beginning of the interview, I was like, I still don't think my English is perfect. And I think one thing that everybody has to overcome is that you need to get out of that thought that you can't speak English well and you are too shy to do that in front of people. Just do it. I think only mistakes can help you learn, but especially when it comes to language. So just have that gut and go out and say it. And if you like, I would recommend find some safe environment. There's some of those like English club that allows you to like speak English with groups of people who are also learning English as well. So start with those. Start with somewhere that you are comfortable with, and just keep practicing. And for me, you guys already heard of my mistake already. So I think I learned a lot from those mistakes. And there were a lot more of my mistakes that I learned along the way. And I think when it comes to skills, you just can't get better like overnight. It's just like a little bit at a time every day. And say for pronunciation, I think when I before I went to the US, I thought I was good. I thought I was good because at least I know how to pronounce, say, V, H, R,
Oh, yes.
S, like things like that. I think I did well, and just that, I think most Thai people still could not do it, or because we didn't get to learn this properly. And once I start living in the US, the stress becomes more clear to me because once you start hearing people say it repeatedly, it just becomes a muscle memory and you just start, okay, when you're gonna use this word, you have to stress this way and that way. And for more advanced, once I start working, and I still, even when I was at Facebook, I still feel like I wanna improve my English because I feel like when I discuss things in a meeting and if I show just a little bit that I seem not confident, I think those foreigners they wouldn't listen to you. They prefer someone who present things with confidence. Like otherwise they would think even you are not confident with your idea, why should we believe you? So even that I tried to improve my English. And the next thing I learned when it comes to pronunciation is that there's this thing in English called schwa sound.
Oh, yes.
And it's like, why didn't someone tell me about this like early on in my life? I believe it's the most common vowels in English. And it's basically, okay, I always tell people in Thai, ทำลิ้นเปรี้ย
ถ้าบอกว่าบอมจบนอกเลยอะไรอย่างเงี้ยเลย
And one word that I say a lot is like machine learning. I teach about AI and machine learning, and I always tell people like if you speak like Thai people without any stress, it's like machine.
Machine learning.
Everything's like equals.
Yes.
And if you learn how to stress, it will become like machine learning. It's a little better. But if you know about Chua sound, on the dictionary, it would say like, it's not machine, it's like machine. So I think this thing can be learned and combined with practicing, and we all can get better. And to me, I practice a lot, and I also put myself on spots to force myself to practice. I need to pitch in English when I first started the company. I need to do a lot of things in English, and that's how you get better over time.
Interesting. So I think a lot of, just to extend a little bit from there,
Sure.
I think a lot of people are already started working somehow, and I think there's some, how to say, discomfort from having to present, having to work but use English and not look or sound professional. How do you, I think, oh, it does get better in time. It's like,
Right.
โอ้ยเดี๋ยวฝึกไปมันก็ดีขึ้นเอง But along the way, how do you encourage yourself to like, let's just keep trying, even though last time you made mistakes, it's okay. What are the things that helps you going further and further and feel like you're gonna get better?
That's kind of tough, but I think it sums to this one word of having the growth mindset. You just have to believe that you can be better, and even yourself cannot believe that, then it's hard to get there. And for me, it's pretty much my life philosophy. I always welcome feedback. So if you were to present in English, I would recommend you just begin your presentation that I'm not comfortable with my English, and if you catch any mistakes or if you not understand anything, just feel free to pause me and I'll explain more, or feel free to correct me. And I think if you start off like embracing all the mistakes and I welcome all the feedback, then nothing can be worse than your expectation.
Oh, wow. I really like this point. I think so. I think, of course, you should be good at your job, and English should be like supplementing the things that you do. And the more you try to learn on the spot instead of trying to be perfect, that's where you gain the most progress.
And I would also add that good people should judge you based on the content. If they are so superficial that they judge you based on just how good your English is and manage to focus on your weak English, and then it's unfortunate, sorry for them, but I wouldn't care too much about those people.
ว้าได้ไฮไลท์แล้ว นี่คือไฮไลท์ นี่คือไฮไลท์ ว้า I love that so much. Yes. So it shouldn't determine the whole thing. It should help you, support you, yeah, and you learn and get better with time. I think a lot of people watching the show or maybe know you or know Farang Angmo probably have the same goal of like, oh, I want to go global. Right. I want to work in a global company or maybe work abroad. Yeah. So what do you think the world top companies, maybe not just Facebook, but you have worked with other world's companies as well. What are they looking for when recruiting someone?
A true talent. Period. When it comes to top companies, they always want to work with the best. They won't tolerate toxic or incompetent people at work, because incompetent people, toxic people, these people only worsen the environment of the company. No one wants to work with lazy people. No one wants to work with those who can't do their job and you need to fill in and do their job for them all the time. So when it comes to top companies, they're pretty strict about this. We only want to work with the best. And they also believe that the best people would refer and bring in more and more good people. And that's when innovation and good stuff come out of the work environment.
Maybe from your perspective, what would, I know there's a lot that goes into the word the best, but what are the key components to that? Like, oh, you walk into a room, I know you're the best.
Okay, I think that two parts. The first part is easy. Just have the skills that is needed for the job. So if you're a marketer, please be good at marketing. If you're a data scientist, please be good at whatever skills data scientists need. That should be straightforward. But the second part, this is hard. Self-drive, self-initiative. No one wants to just keep telling you what to do. In the top global companies, they only create you a great environment. The rest is you. You just go in and I feel like I want to do this, I want to do that. And you go around asking other people, you want to join me in this project? We have this objective of the company for this year, and I have this crazy idea, I want to do this, I think would be good for our product. What do you think? So they're looking for people like this. So I was an interviewer after I worked at Facebook for a while. And one question that we usually ask our candidates at the end of the interview, we would ask them, if you were to start working at Facebook tomorrow, you can do anything at Facebook, what would you like to do? And the outstanding one would come with tons of ideas. I've been itching about these features. I think if you can fix this, it would be great for most of the people. It should be blah, blah, blah. They would come with tons of ideas. Like with this one question, you'll see how much self-initiative this person has. You can see easily whether the person is passionate about the company. It's clear that whether this guy spent so much time and effort studying up the company before they come to the interview today. There were a lot of, so I was a data scientist, so I got the privilege to interview a lot of smart people, and sometimes they're just smart, but they're if you ask them technical question, they can nail it. But if you start asking them things related to product or business, more open, more broad, what do you think this could be integrated as part of the product? And they were I'm not sure. If you want to create this model, how would we collect this data and all? What kind of product we need to make so that people can give us this kind of signals and data so we can do this whatever fancy model? And they were no, I don't know. But given this data, I can do this, and that. So so I think the second part, the self-initiative and the passion with the work and all, I think this is what makes the big difference between typical talent and the top talents. I saw a lot of Facebook posts. Most bosses love their employees, love their reports to help them do their work. No one wants to go to you and you do this and that. If possible at all, I wish all my reports do all the work and say, hey boss, I finished this for you. So I think to make this happen, you need to take a step further, try to get into the head of your boss, what is needed to be done, what the business is needed from you, and then take a step forward and make it happen.
Wow. I remember I think there's a concept from this book called Good to Great, which reflects the exact thing that, and I was so mind blown. I thought that we need to manage people, but they said that the best organization are actually self-managed. Everyone manage themselves and drive themselves.
Yes.
Very interesting. Okay.
Well, when you read the book, it might sound like that's impossible.
Yeah, that sounds
But I would say most top companies, people are sort of looking for things that they also want to do, things that align with the business and have great impact. So I think that's why these big companies can retain a lot of talent with them.
If you have to choose, for you maybe from your experience, something that you feel like is the most valuable lesson learned from working at Facebook as a data scientist, what would be that lesson learned?
So hard. I love so many things at Facebook. Okay, the one thing that I would mention would be it changed my mindset, the way I look at things. Before joining Facebook, if you recall, I was students all along. I was a student, study, undergrad, master's, PhD, and I was pretty much a perfectionist. I tried to do everything the best I can, get the best result, have the best performance. So that was my mindset before going to Facebook. But once I joined Facebook, and as you all know, Facebook has this hacker culture. They encourage you to do things really fast. They have this motto called move fast and break things. If you have never broken anything, then you move too slow. They encourage you to do a lot of things all by yourself. And this one poster says, done is better than perfect.
Ooh.
So I think that changed me a lot. So from a perfectionist, and now you're in a company that moves really fast. And if you try to be perfect, there won't be time for you to be perfect. So I start embracing this idea in the startup world that we call minimum viable product, MVP. But at Facebook, it was real. It's you want to try this feature? Try it. Whatever easiest way you can build this thing, just build it, launch it, get the data. It doesn't work, shut it down. And it's been like that. And that's when I start learning to embrace failures. I start taking in feedback a lot more. I start feel a lot more okay getting negative feedback. I was like, okay, great, thanks for letting me know. And I think that changed a lot because when you were a perfectionist, once you heard someone say any bad things about you, it would drive you crazy. I was like, I tried so hard. Why are you saying this to me?
Oh, yes.
But once you shift that mindset, I was like, okay, you're not doing this as good as I expected. And I was like, okay, great, thanks for letting me know. I'll do better next time. So once that shift your mindset, I think it changed a lot. And I think that mindset has been with me as an entrepreneur because now I'm building my own company. I can't just like perfect thing. No, whatever makes money, I'll do that. and we'll see what works, what doesn't.
One of the coolest things that I've heard about you, I think I was listening to a podcast interviewing you like 5 years ago. I've been a fan that long, okay? Is that despite your growing career at Facebook, you decided to come back to Thailand with a goal and the passion to improve the education in Thailand and specifically professional development or education. หล่อมากค่ะพี่ตา นี่แหวะชมก่อน Okay, so that was 7 years ago. What I saw first on the website, I think that would be the mission of Schoolio, right? The Schoolio mission is to help, quote unquote, help individuals master today's most in-demand skills, right? And I think you could feel the same, and I think everybody would feel the same, that there seems to be a lot of skills to master in this day and age. So I think this is going to be $1 million question once again. But what, in your opinion, maybe right now, what are currently the most in-demand and high-income skills in your point of view?
First of all, I don't think there's one because it depends on your background.
For sure.
But whatever background you comes from, there would be something related to digital that could add more value to your job. So let's say if you study things related to HR, if you can do a lot more data analysis, you can start doing HR analytics and you can become more data-driven HR employees. If you study anything related to marketing, you probably learn product, price, place, promotion in class, but this day, all marketers need to be able to understand Facebook ads, Google ads, and things like that. So digital marketing is really important. And if you know data, that's even more important. Performance marketing, you need to like put the right ad into the right people at the right time. So whatever digital skills could always like enhance your background, I would say. And okay, another area, let's say if your job is super tedious. I would say super tedious. It's generic. There's nothing like digital about it. I would say automation would be a way to go. For example, if you're accountant, if you're sales, if you're those whose job pretty much routine, nothing to be creative, things like that. So I was like, if your job requires no creative, it's perhaps require automation. So if you understand digital and you can create a workflow, if this email create this quotation automatically and send this back to customers automatically, you can get back a lot of your time and you can be a lot more efficient. So the way I see it is that everyone has certain digital skills that could add to your skill set and could help you become a better employees, better workforce for the company. And I always tell people this, that don't look for the highest paying job because that always change. At some point, people want to be a doctor, and now at some point it was software engineer, and at some point it was data scientist, and now data engineer starting to become more important than data scientist, and now it's ChatGPT, it's blockchain, it's whatever. It's gonna keep changing, and I don't think you need to run and follow all those trends, but stay ground at your core. Just stay firm at one place. You are a good marketer. Your marketing skills will always be useful, but add other skills and expand so that you can do more, but have a strong core. Don't just run around. If you really run around, now people say a lot to become pet. Be good at everything in general, a generalist. And I would say if you're pet, like you can do only just a little bit of everything, I think it's hard for you to stand out. But if you have one thing that you're really good at, sometimes we'll call this a T-shaped skill.
Right.
So you have one thing that really shine, really stand out, and then you also have other skills that allow you to work with other people better. You can work more efficiently, and I think that's the way to go for the next century.
Wow. And all of that, ladies and gentlemen, you can upskill all of these skills mentioned at studio.com.
Thank you.
ทำหน้าที่ดีไหมคะ
ดีครับ
ได้นะคะ จ้างได้นะคะ Okay. Okay. I feel like I've learned so much from you, and not just in front of the camera right now, but also whenever I get to ask your advice and opinions on things, on business, on education, on tech, right? So one last question, because the world is changing so fast and the technology is advancing very, very quickly.
Right.
One week it's one thing, another week it's totally different thing. It can be quite overwhelming for people who feel like they need to relearn, they need to upskill, reskill, and keep up with everything, right? So what would be your advice for those who maybe currently are, of course, they want to do better, they want to, excel in their career, but they are often overwhelmed by the competition in this fast-paced world. Is there anything they can do or any encouragement for them?
Any encouragement? This is tough. The thing is, it's a sad truth. I would say it is indeed overwhelming. And the sad part is that if you kind of slow, or people would say like you just pause and then you already got behind, because other people would get ahead of you because they can keep up with the pace of technology. So I think this is the sad truth. But one thing to sort of mitigate this, I would say, you don't need to run after every single technology. You can kind of wait and see if it's somewhat mature, and then you jump into it later. For example, ChatGPT is probably one of the greatest examples. ChatGPT came out a while back, and the version that's sort of mind-blowing was like at the end of last year, I think.
Right.
And I personally didn't get to use ChatGPT until like earlier this year. I kind of wait until like people sort of hype about it, and then I was like, it just hype, and then people start talking about some applications that I was like, okay, that could be useful for me, and once I start seeing that it's worth my time investing into learning this thing, then okay, I'll pay for subscription. Let me try this out, how this can help me, and once you try it, I think you will find how things can be beneficial to your work. But you don't need to follow like every single thing. I didn't try every single like generative AI tools, but don't just run without knowing your own direction. I would say like have your direction clear and like do the sidetrack, try this, try that. Think of it as a journey. Look at fun thing along the way, rather than running at full speed this direction and change to another direction on another day. That would be a chaos for your life, I would say.
For sure. So it's not just the ability to learn literally everything, it's the ability to choose what the right tools for you, right? And to make use of the things that actually you can make use of, right? So any final thoughts or message that you would like to leave for our audience?
My final message would be, for a lot of things that we have been discussing, I think you all can benefit if you can change your mindset into an infinite learner. This is a word I took from this book by Reid Hoffman. He said, you just need to be an infinite learner, especially in this era. I think if you can embrace that mindset, learning is fun. And if you remember, one of the 3 words describing me was a nerd. So to me, I think this is like what a great era to live in. There's like a lot of new fun things for you to learn. There are a lot of new opportunities. And a lot of times I told people it's a thin line between change and opportunity. A lot of time people see change as a bad thing. Oh, there's this change, there's that change. I don't want to change. But a lot of time, all these changes bring opportunities. If you can learn technology before others, that's how you get ahead of them. So I love it when there are a lot of change, and adjust yourself a lot and you get ahead of people very easily.
and said by the change maker. So I think I have a multiple goosebump along the way. I was like, yes, finally someone said this. So I think this is $1 million kind of session we have right here with Vita. So thank you
Thank you for
again
having me. Thank
so
you for
much.
having me.
If people want to upskill or learn digital skills with Schooldio, how can they follow?
www.studio.com. Just follow our studio page. I think it's the best way to start. Just follow our content, see what interests you. You don't need to buy anything from us right now. Let's come and see.
And please don't forget to be an infinite learner. That's definitely the word that will be stick on my wall from this day onwards. So, ladies and gentlemen, what about you? What have you learned from our talk today with Pita? So, if you want to share anything, something you have learned, something you are inspired from, please do comment down below. All right, thank you so much for watching and listening to our show. And that's it for today. Bye.
Bye.
ถ้าได้ประโยชน์จากวิดีโอนี้ชอบเนื้อหาแบบนี้กด subscribe กดไลค์กดกระดิ่งแจ้งเตือนจะได้ไม่พลาดคอนเทนต์ต่อไปของฝรั่งอังมอให้ทุกคนได้เรียนรู้และเก่งขึ้นไปด้วยกันนะคะ Happy learning